Failure is yuck, isn't it? Really yuck. That sticky, icky, horrible feeling you get when you fail. I bet if I asked you to put your hand up if you've ever gone, yay, I failed, I doubt any would put their hand up. However, time is an amazing thing, isn't it? How it takes something that was a failure, absolute disaster, and then in time, you look back and you go, actually, you know what? That worked out well. That was actually a success. I'm passionate about success. You may wonder why I'm standing here talking to you about failure. Well, actually, I believe success and failure are intrinsically linked. Indeed, I believe if you fear failure, you cannot succeed. It's quite a good thing that I don't fear failure and I don't mind it, because actually, as it transpires, I'm pretty good at it. Started off when I was about 11. I managed to fail my 11 plus. I managed to get a U in my O-level history because I wrote 14 pages and didn't include one date. But the thing I fail at most is cooking. Absolute disaster. I'd like to share a couple of my disasters, of the many. A few months ago, I managed to singe off my eyelashes whilst grilling sausages, and I was wearing my glasses at the time. Yeah. And we went on a self-catering holiday recently. Bit of a steep learning curve there. I managed to melt the toaster. Yeah, not great. Today, I want to give you a gift. Quite a few gifts, actually. Don't worry, none of my cooking. I want to give you a gift of some stories. Stories you can take away with you and remember when you worry about failing. I want to start with someone who did worry about failing. She grew up in a loving family with parents who seemed to do really well, in fact, incredibly successful, never seemed to fail. In fact, this child, as she grew up, she felt adults never fail. When she became 18 herself, she thought, hang on a minute, I'm meant to be perfect. I'm not meant to get anything wrong. How am I going to do this? And she found herself failing. And so what she did was she took her life and she said, well, if I make it smaller and smaller and smaller, and if I control everything in my life, maybe I can succeed. So she made her life smaller and smaller and controlled everything in it, even her food. In fact, at the age of 18, she developed severe and at times life-threatening anorexia nervosa and was hospitalized 7 times over the next 12 years. The thing is, it's really difficult, isn't it? As a parent, you know, you can't blame the parents in this situation, you can't blame society for the situation. However, you know what? I know as a parent myself how hard it is not to judge my parenting through my children's success. Guilty as charged. I have 2 children, and when they were born, it was difficult to judge myself through their birth weight and the weight they were when they grew, to their spelling tests, and to my shame, the parts they got in their school play. Okay, so when my younger daughter was 7, she came up to me on a Friday afternoon and she says, Mummy, I'm going to be Mary in the school nativity. Okay, I had arrived. I had arrived at the best parent, all right? I can imagine at the school gate going, oh, hi, what part's your play? Oh, back end of a donkey. Oh, okay, my daughter's Mary. Try not to be too smug about it. Okay, so that saw me through the whole weekend. I literally skipped to church. And on the Monday, I couldn't help myself but sidle up to the teacher and sort of whisper so no one else could hear, I'm so glad that Hannah's going to be Mary. She gave me a look, said, haven't given out the parts yet. Oh God, can you imagine? I was really, really embarrassed. I said to Hannah, Hannah, you're not going to be Mary. And she looked up at me and said, well, I could be. And I, well, so could the other 16 girls in your class. The thing was, I felt I had to reduce myself again to be just a good enough mother. The thing is, children love praise. And I've just said to you, you can't fear failure. So how does that mix? How do we support our children to learn to fail? Well, a lady called Carol Dweck, who is a psychologist, has done an incredible study how we can use praise to support our children not to fear failure. She got 400 children in America, not in one go, little slots, thank goodness, and she gave them all a test. And at the end of the test, she separated them into different groups. For one group, she said, congratulations, you did really, really well. You must be really intelligent. The other group, she said, congratulations, well done. You did really well. You must be a really hard worker. Oops. So, we have two groups, intelligent group and hard workers. She then gave them a choice. Okay, so you can either do a really tough test, you'll learn loads through it, it'll really challenge you, but you won't get it all right, or you can do a test where you'll definitely get it right pretty easy. Okay, so let's see what they chose. The intelligent group wants to keep their label of being intelligent, didn't want to fail. 67% of them decided that they wanted to do the easy test. But what happened to the hard workers? Well, they liked the badge hard working, so they decided that 92% would do the hard working test. So they would fail in it, but they would learn loads. They were then given an incredibly difficult test, impossible in fact. How did they feel about doing that? Well, the intelligent group hated it. They were frustrated and they gave up, really didn't enjoy it at all. But what happened to the hard workers? Well, actually, they enjoyed it. They were enthusiastic, kept going. They failed as much as the other group, but they didn't matter about failing because they were working hard. At the end, Carol Dweck and her team gave both groups a task, very similar to the very first one they had given them. What happened to their results? Well, the intelligent group felt very, very demoralized by the fact that they hadn't done very well. And in fact, their results went down by 20%. But what happened to the hard workers? They were really buoyed up by the fact they'd been able to work really hard. What happened to their results? They went up 30%. It's not about how we praise our children, it's what we do with the praise. Now, interestingly, Carol Dweck is not the only person who really champions failure. We have a lady called Jessica Leahy, and she has written a book called The Gift of Failure. Unbelievably, how can failure be a gift? But this really thick book goes through and helps us to understand how important failure is if we want our children to succeed, saying that parents must allow their children to fail and give them the opportunity to do so. Now, you may not be a parent, you may not have any children, you may not be a teacher, you may be thinking, you know what, I'm just going to get my phone out because it's about the time, doesn't really relate to me. Hang on, because from now on, this talk relates to everyone in this room. I'm now going to look at some successful failures, people who didn't fear failure and therefore succeeded. I'm sure you recognize some of these names. I'm going to tell you about their failures. Richard Dyson Hoover. Anyone got one of those? Few people? I did have one. Until I tried to hoover up a screwdriver. Didn't quite work. He failed 5,126 times in order to create this bagless vacuum cleaner. Amazing. Jack Cranfield, the writer of Chicken Soup for the Soul, presented his book to 144 publishers. 143 said no. Elizabeth Blackwell is the first female GP in the USA. She applied to 29 medical schools. They all said no. The 30th took her on as a joke. Jack Andraka, at the age of 15, had started to develop an amazing way to diagnose pancreatic cancer, quickly, easy, and efficiently. he wrote to 199 medical labs asking if they would let him have a little bit of space to see through his ideas. They all said no. Number 200 say yes. And now he's working on not only a way of diagnosing pancreatic cancer, but other cancers. And J.K. Rowling, famously, her first manuscript for Harry Potter was rejected by 12 publishers. And as they say, the rest is history. I'm sure you appreciate none of these were failures. They were all amazing successes because they did not fear failure. Let's look at some other kinds of failures. Look at some times when, you know what, it's all gone wrong, there's no point trying again and again and again. A bit like when I tried to take up a pair of jeans and I ended up taking up the same leg twice. Yeah, I'm not joking here. So they ended up being shorts. Yeah. Okay, let's look at some really bad days at the office, which turned into some incredible successes. An artificial drug to treat malaria ended up being this yucky, tarry sludge that just wasn't going to go anywhere, nearly got thrown in the bin. Creating a super strong glue. Actually, you know what? Hardly stuck anything. And forgetting to do the washing up before going on holiday. What happened to each of these really bad failures? Well, the artificial drug to treat malaria. This tarry, materially yucky, tarry stuff nearly got thrown away. The scientists took a bit of material and dipped it in and got incredible mauve colour. The first time that had been created. In fact, this technique has revolutionised how material is now dyed. Super strong glue. Complete failure. Many years later, who hasn't got one of these in their house or their office? A post-it note. And forgetting to do the washing up before going on holiday? Yeah, not good. Got the Petri dish, and there's some mould had grown in it. And from that mould, loads of experiments later, what do we get? Penicillin. I'm sure you can see how these may have started out as failures. These people have got to have given up. They didn't. They turned it to being something even better. Isn't it amazing how life changes if we just take our perspective further? Now, you may wonder, well, hang on a minute. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a writer. I'm none of these things. Maybe it doesn't relate to me. But what I'd like to do now is take you into a very brief story about an area that I think is incredibly competitive and incredibly public. Sport. And we've recently had the Olympics, haven't we? I mean, a world stage of competitiveness. But I'd like to introduce you to a couple of stories that happened at that time. We have two ladies, the 5,000-metre heat. At the end of the race, or near the end, both of them fell. But rather than trying to carry on, and they turned round and supported each other. Neither of them knew each other before the race. And even though they sacrificed any kind of medal, they were given a Spirit of the Games Fair Play Award. And on the left, we have the Brownlee brothers. Johnny Brownlee was winning, okay? The triathlon, the world champion. He was just about to win, but he collapsed about 2 kilometres from the end. His brother, Alistair, saw him, could have run past and got the gold, but he didn't. He picked up his brother and took him across the line in front of him. I'm sure you can see that neither of these are failures. They sacrificed gold for a greater glory. I'm going to take you back now to 2 stories I mentioned. Do you remember Hannah, my daughter? Mary? Wasn't Mary, sadly. But what happened was that Mary, Joseph, and the baby Jesus were over in a little tableau here. And Hannah had a brilliant part. She was singing, dancing, having a fantastic time. I couldn't have been prouder. And what about the lady who had anorexia? What happened to her? Well, she actually recovered. She married, she had children. And as an artist, her work has been used throughout the world to demonstrate what it's like to have an eating disorder. She's recently been on television in France, and her work has been shown on the BBC, using her experiences to illustrate how it is to have an illness like that. The problem was that she felt incredible shame. You know what it's like when you fail at something, or you feel guilty, or you feel shameful? Well, this lady couldn't let go of it. Couldn't let go. And so she decided to look back on her life and think, well, hang on a minute. Why did that come about? And she realized that really what it was all about was the fact that she had to make this massive leap between a child and being an adult, and being dependent, being independent. There seemed to be a massive chasm between the two. And she felt, what I need to do is ensure that there isn't such a massive chasm, trying to bring those two together. So she decided to create a course. And 3 years ago, she woke up in the middle of the night and wrote a course for parents and preteens to do together about growing up and becoming independent. This course is now running in West London with over 100 families. Now, unbelievably, this lady is here today, and she could be sitting right next to you. But I know that she is not, because she is me. And so I stand here as someone who's failed loads. I really have. Cooking, not so great still, but at least you kind of know why. And I stand and tell you, please, take something that's happened in your life and turn it for the good. See what is good, the good it has done for you. Be proud of who you are, because your failures have made you who you are. And do not be afraid of failing, because sometimes those failures turn out to be the biggest successes. And if you have any influence on a child's life, help them too, to know that failure, it isn't the end, just part of the journey. And isn't it about time that we looked at failure and saw it as just the start of success? I believe that's an idea worth spreading. Thank you.